When I posted my inflation hits black mothers the hardest video, I had no way of knowing it would spark the emotion that it did. However, here we are. And I need to respond to a lot of the rebuttals that were in the comments because there were quite a few and so many that I'm actually going to break this video up into two and talk about just a few of them today and the rest of them in another video because this video would be so long if I didn't. All right. So before I do that, welcome to Black to Bitcoin, where I explore the wealth gap and how Bitcoin is a solution to a lot of our problems. So if you do enjoy content about the Black experience and how we can overcome as a people with our finances, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and share with everyone because we need to get the word out. Okay? All right, so let's get into these comments. The first thing I want to say is, even though it was assumed I was talking about single mothers, it wasn't just about single mothers. I was talking about all Black mothers, okay? Because all Black mothers are at a disadvantage over mothers of different races, okay? So that was the first thing. I wasn't just talking about single mothers. Now, I did do a follow-up video if you want to watch that, and that one was about single mothers, all right? So that's that. Just wanted to get that out the way. But I also want to give some examples of things where we don't blame the person. Because there's always a bigger picture behind what's going on in a situation. And a lot of the comments were basically bashing and shaming single mothers and not looking at the bigger picture. So I'm going to give some analogies on things that affect people where we don't blame the person, okay? And I have my notes. The first one is if somebody loses their job and it's because there's a recession, we don't say they should have picked a better economy. We understand that there's another thing at play and that it's the system. If there's a group of people who have certain medical conditions that other people don't have, we don't just say that person should have made better choices, even though maybe they did. You still look at the bigger picture and why this is affecting just that community. We want to know those answers. If someone is priced out of their house, we don't say, oh, that person should have picked a better market. We look at what's happening for that to happen to them. If a school does not have the funding, the teachers, or the means like another school, we don't tell the student you should have picked a better school. We don't do that. And then the last example I have is a sports team. If you have a team that is underfunded, doesn't have the same training facilities, doesn't have the best coaches, when they lose, you don't say, oh, the players should have whatever, picked another team, whatever, right? So these are examples of things that happen that are in the system, or there's no power over the circumstances, and we don't blame the person that is affected by it. And it goes the same for single Black mothers, okay? There are things that have been put into place. There are situations and circumstances that have led to this thing, okay? And it's important to look at them because a lot of the bashing is very unnecessary, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and get into some of the arguments and points that were in the comments, okay? The first one was that they should choose more wisely and find a better man. Okay, look. Now, what I'm about to say is not a dagger at Black men. Because just like I understand circumstances with Black women, I 100% do the same for our Black men. But the reality of this situation is there is a smaller pool of financially secure Black men for a woman to have someone to help them. Okay? And a stat that kind of brings this home is that in a poor household, 1 in 5 of the men that are raising these are going to end up incarcerated. So that is a huge portion of Black men that are taken off the market in general. And then we have the fact that a lot of Black men are just struggling financially because they don't have access to certain training and jobs that other men have. Okay? And because of these things, they affect the marriage rates. Marriage is very contingent on financial security and comfort. And because that is not a thing with a lot of Black men, it makes the single parent home a lot more prevalent. Okay? And I think that's all I have for that. Oh yeah, and I do have that there's actually a name for this. So you know it's actually happening because it's in research. It's called the marriageable man problem is what it's called in research. Okay. And I'm not saying you should always trust all the research, but there's actually a term for it. So that shows that people have studied it, and that is actually a huge thing that affects Black households. Okay. The second thing was Black women just want their independence. They don't want to rely on a man, that kind of argument. And that is crazy because Black women are independent because of pressure and having no choice. Okay? Because of the circumstances that are affecting a lot of Black men, Black women are having to pull a lot of the weight anyways. And this isn't just with single motherhood. This is with regular family dynamics where there are men in the household. Okay? Black women are one of the biggest sectors of the workforce. We work. Okay? So, yes, there's a lot of independence going on because there's no choice. Okay? I think if you ask the average Black woman if she would work less, would she? She'd probably say yes. Okay? Most people like a little help. Ain't nobody trying to just be that independent. Okay? And definitely not in this economy. So no, it's not just that Black women want to be so independent that they'd rather raise a child by themselves. If you even say that out loud, it sounds absolutely crazy. Okay? I think that's all I have for that one. Yes. Oh, no. Oh, I'm not done. Nope. Now, let me talk about this. Let's talk about this whole independence thing. I can't believe I was even going to skip over this. We're going to talk about child support. So we want to talk about how Black women, and now I'm talking about Black single mothers for sure, want to be so independent. Do you know what percentage of Black men are actually paying their child support? Let's see. 43 to 46% of single mothers are actually getting the child support that they are due. Not even 50% of the Black men, okay, who are having children are paying child support. So for you to say that, single mothers or whoever wants to be independent, they ain't got no choice because they're not even getting child support and support for their household. So there you go with that. I couldn't believe I was about to leave that out. I actually looked for that statistic because I was really curious. Like, okay, independence, like how many people are actually being independent? A lot, more than 50%. Crazy. Okay, so that's that point. The last one is stop having kids without a husband. Now, this kind of ties into the first one, but I want to just talk about marriage, okay, particularly. Okay, so there are a few things that marriage is attached to and reasons people get married and don't get married, okay? The first one is stable employment, okay? Now, like I said, Black women, they do have to work quite a bit and they do make a big part of the workforce. And black men, unfortunately, because of the incarceration rates and all these things, and there are definitely consequences of the incarceration system and what happens to black men when they get out and all this, but I'm going to actually do a separate video on that will be coming out soon. In general, that lack of stability lends to less marriages. Other things, higher income, because both people are usually not making the income they need. That affects marriage rates. And then financial security. And that stems from not just how much money you're making now, but also assets and things that can be passed down. Okay? So people avoid marriage because of these things. Okay? These things have they play a huge factor in why a lot of marriages don't take place and why a lot of people aren't married. And because of that, they live in single parent homes. Okay? So those are the points that I have to make about that. And I will go into Bitcoin, of course, but let me just do like a very short recap. So the first one is choose wisely, find a better man. And we talked about the fact that there aren't as many black men in the market for that. How black women want more independence. That one's not true because black women have no choice but to be independent, and the ones that are raising kids on their own aren't getting child support for the most part the way they're supposed to. And then the last one was stop having kids without a husband. And marriage rates are low for a specific reason, and that's because financially black women and black men make a lot less, and marriages are very dependent on financial security. Okay, so those are the points. Let me just go ahead and get into Bitcoin. Okay, actually I should have probably tied it to each point, because I probably lost like a lot of y'all by now, and I need to start making Bitcoin a little bit more close to the beginning of the videos because I got to make the point about Bitcoin. All right, so the first thing is that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. So this whole conversation that I'm talking about with black mothers, it don't matter if it's black mothers or black husbands or black sons or daughters or whatever. The point is inflation is the problem with all of it. The fact that the prices of things are always going up and wages are going down. All right. And the fact that as black people, we don't have assets that keep up with inflation. Now, the reason Bitcoin is so great is because it is an easy asset to get into. And in my opinion, the best one, because it's the one that's raised in value the best and the fastest. It's one where you can invest with just a little bit of money. You don't have to put $20,000 down like you would for a house. And it bucks the system. That's the point I think people are missing the most with Bitcoin. It is and I'm going to say it this way in every video, it is a FU to the system. The whole point of it is to eliminate middlemen. So once you have your Bitcoin in self-custody, there is no one who can take that Bitcoin from you. They can't manipulate it. They can't seize it. They can't do anything to it. And as a community that is constantly having people interfere with our wealth and our abilities to build wealth, we should have an asset that is completely off the grid. That's how I look at Bitcoin. It is an off the grid income and wealth strategy. And I think for marginalized communities like ours, it is the best way to hold wealth and to store wealth. Okay. And most importantly, to pass down generational wealth. All right. So those are my Bitcoin, my Bitcoin solutions to this problem, because pretty much all of them will be solved with the fact that it is so independent and you are taking power back with your money. All right. So that's all for this video. Like I said, I will talk about the other rebuttals in another video. So definitely look out for that. Other than that, make sure that you are saving. Make sure that you are stacking and learn about Bitcoin, because as I say all the time, you should never invest in anything that you don't understand. So definitely do your due diligence with that. One thing I do suggest all the time is the Bitcoin Standard book. I have a link to it in my description, but it is really a great book to understand money and to understand Bitcoin and what it can do. All right, so that's it for this video. Hope you're having a great day. Until next time, have a good one, keep stacking, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.